Hey, and
What's
we have,
up? What's up?
hey, thank you. Well, we have such a special guest today. I'm so excited. As you know, some of you may know, Vince Adams is a Chicago DJ that's amassed thousands of followers via his multi-genre, multi-state, multi-generation style of performance. In addition to his prolific social media presence with almost daily shows, Vince is the current host of the talk show One on One with Vince Adams on HBCU programming Sirius XM channel 142. Did I get that right, Vince?
Absolutely.
All right. So, Vince, welcome to the Vintage House Show.
Thank you. Thank you. Such a fan of the show. So it's an honor to be here for sure.
It is our honor. It is our
It's
honor.
our
And we're
honor.
celebrating Valentine's Day this week. It's the week of Valentine's. Lots of love going around. So there's plenty of red in the air. And
So you got V for Valentine's, Lori and Lauren for love. I mean,
that's right.
What's up? Can't get better than that, man.
It's good. It's good. So I'll get us started. Vince, you have described yourself as an accidental DJ. I've heard you say that in the past.
for sure.
And you often credit a few people in your life that helped motivate you to reach the masses in the special, unique way that you do. And we're going to get into that. And one of those folks is your mother. I've heard you say that.
Right.
So let's hear about, I want to hear about Baby Vince and your mom, and where did you grow up, and how did your mom help influence you? I know it was later, but I'm sure it happened somewhat early in life.
That's a fair question. I moved to Coles Avenue, 60649, one block west of South Shore, when I was 2 years old. So, probably my earliest memories are there at 7929 South Coles, and moved from 7929 to 73rd and Coles, then 76 and Coles. So I was literally on, that South Shore area, what do we call it then? The club, the country club.
And South Shore Cultural Center, yeah.
Oh yeah, it's a cultural center now, but it was the South Shore Country Club.
Country Club. It was at one point a country club.
Right. Yeah. So those are my days. And what my mom tells me is I actually used to climb out of the crib, and like they would say, "How did he get out of the crib?" But I was going to the stereo. So all of my early presents would be music related: a close and play record player, a drum set. I mean, anything. Like I was just, I wasn't really into, fighting men, like the little toy men. Like I was into sound, anything that made sound. And, went from like the little Panasonic radio to a bigger kind of boom box. Like that was it. Like if I got music, like now for my wife, my brother, everybody, they say, if you get them built, buttons and lights. That if you want to give Vince a present, it's got to have buttons and lights on it. I've been that way ever since I was a kid. But on the music side, my mom listened to everything from Chick Corea, R.I.P., I believe.
Rest in peace. He just passed, yeah.
Just passed. Chick Corea, Bobby Humphrey, Phoebe Snow. I mean, not just like,
Oh, I love Phoebe Snow.
Yeah, not just the contemporary things that, Lonnie Liston Smith. I mean, so there were new records like every Tuesday. That was when the music dropped, even back in the 70s. And, when we would go to Evergreen Plaza or the River Oaks, that was kind of like a special trip because you lived.
Oh, I remember.
You go out, to 95th Street. And my thing was, can we go to the record store before I leave? Like, even if I didn't buy a record, I just had to be there. So my mom really cultivated that interest that I had like the entire time. It was never like that's too loud or turn it down or enough, or it was always like, hey, what do you want to do? And it kind of culminated, if you will, in my grandmother, who took me to see Beat Street and Breakin' and Purple Rain. Those movies kind of all dropped.
Your grandmother took you to see those.
Yes, and so imagine being, sitting next to grandma, 14 years old, and Lake Minnetonka scene pops up in Purple Rain.
That's a cool grandma.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, she took me to see Pink Floyd The Wall.
Wow.
All these movies kind of came out at the same time, and she's like, "What the hell do you have you watching here?" But more so to Beat Street and Breakin'. I mean, if we think about it, I was born in '70, so these movies came out in '84, and for the first time, a kid is able to see a DJ. So if you're born in the '60s, you've probably been to a couple parties, or you've seen the actual music being played. So these hip hop movies were my first experience because I was a huge fan of the Hot Mix Five. Like, all the blank tapes that you could imagine, because I wasn't old enough to go to the original warehouse, and we know all, all the vintage house, pun intended, places that were there, but my outlet musically was the Hot Mix Five. So I'm listening to Farley and Mickey Mixon Oliver and Scott Smoking Seals and Kenny Jam and Jason, even before Steve Hurley was a part of the lineup. But seeing Beat Street and Breaking live, I'm seeing the DJs for the very first time. And that was like 8th grade graduation. Mom, I need turntables in the mix. Like, I got to do this. And she's like, I'm a single mom. That's not happening. I was like, it's graduation. She made it happen. And I got my first turntables, belt drive B200 turntables and the Gemini mixer. And
Remember those?
That was so kind of from age 2 to 14, that was mom's influence, to allowing me to buy music, supporting me through the gifts, and then the fact that she was such a music fan herself with a very wide, breadth of music. It wasn't like believe it or not, we didn't listen to like Aretha Franklin, James Brown, Patti LaBelle. That wasn't really the house that we had. Like, it was much more kind of Earth, Wind and Fire, Isley Brothers. It was kind of like straight soul, but then these breakouts of different types of jazz and different flavors as well.
Yeah, that sounds great. It's such a blessing to have a parent that supports you that way. And it's a theme, Vince. It's something that we hear a lot when we talk about pioneers in house music. Was that there's this theme that there was some kind of support system. And I think it's something that maybe distinguishes it from hip hop, which was much more sort of a street movement.
A rebellion thing almost.
What do you think? What do you think about that? Because you were starting to do both.
Well, the thing about it is that all of my interest was house. Like, house was 100% of my interest until my mom's husband, my stepdad at the time, was from Baltimore, and we went to a family reunion, and they played Run DMC for me for the first time, and I was like, "What is this? Like, this is like, so." Yeah, so I mean, from Herb Kemp, we were familiar with Pac Jam, and like Herb was playing a lot of like kind of electro, hip hop, breaking kind of stuff, even in the punk out show. But hardcore hip hop, I got introduced to when I actually went to the East Coast, and that opened my eyes. But definitely what I can say is that from everything that you could see in Breaking, Beat Street, Wild Style, it was kind of like more of a rebellious us against the community, us against the world, us against our parents kind of thing, where I see that the house community, a lot of times, like the parents almost facilitated a lot of the shenanigans or the interests or that sort of thing. So there was, kind of a dichotomy there where, the hip hop was kind of like more anti, and the house, flavor seemed like it was more pro. So that would be my, short flavor on it, is that there was more of a synergy or more, let's do this together aspect when it came to house. Yeah.
I appreciate what you're saying about that your exposure to house music was really through the Hot Mix Five. And Lauren and I are working with Renelle Bird and on the show called The Bird's Nest, which is another podcast. And we actually did a 4-part series on the Hot Mix Five. Maybe we can still squeak you in there if you're interested in just having your voice be part of it. That would be really cool. But what we're learning, what we learned just from talking to so many people about that era, was that was often people's first exposure to what we call like house music culture, canon, however you want to describe it. They didn't hear it from clubs. They heard it on the radio. And radio mixing is very different than what you might hear at the Music Box or Warehouse or some of these, or the Playground or Penthouse or many of these other clubs that, we started in the earlier 80s, in that it was faster pace. It was, you were playing to an audience that often might have been in a car, or in a temporary situation. So you got to get in and get out. The mixes have to be tight, and you got to just have facility with the music in a different kind of way than, say, a typical house music DJ from the early 80s.
Was the thought that it was more curated? Because of course you had the ability to curate those sets on, when you're playing on the Hot Mix 5, when you're on the radio, you can curate those sets. When you're live, it's a very different ball game, who you're attempting to make move, so I feel like people were introduced to that. But when we talk about the Hot Mix 5 and your introduction to that, I think a lot of people were in your communities were also listening to the Hot Mix 5. Was that your grammar school days? Were there other influences on your block? Were you all listening to it together? Who else was sort of your music crew as young person?
That's a fantastic question for this reason. I had the best high school experience in the world, bar none. Here's why. I entered Whitney Young in 1982.
Bless Whitney Young. Yay, Whitney Young.
As a seventh grader.
Got it.
So think about what music represented, the umbrella of house music between 82 and 88.
Yep.
So when you think about house music in that aspect, I'm listening to the radio, but at the same time, you've got this influence that comes in from the school parties and the other things that I'm introduced to as a seventh grader that I otherwise wouldn't have ever seen if I was on, Coles Avenue in South Shore. So I was introduced to a more mature disco sound, Leland Holloway, Love is the Message. I was introduced to a disco vibe as a seventh grader, but was able to kind of cultivate that interest in how to move through the tracks and, Adonis and all the other things that kind of came through that period. So that because I was 6'1", as a seventh grader, they thought that I was, I'm 6'5" now. I stopped growing.
6'5".
I stopped growing at 16, but literally from the age 7 to 14, my age was my shoe size. So when people say, at your age, not your shoe, I'm like, I'm doing both.
I'm sure they thought you were like in real high school. I'm sure they thought you were more the high school age. Certainly, if you were interested in things.
Absolutely. So, the class of 86 was my freshman year class. And we know about the, Lady D was there at that time. You got Steve Maestro, who was older than me, who was there at that time. You got Big Brother Greg, who went to Whitney Young. He was
Greg.
Yep.
Yeah.
So all of these influences are around me as a seventh grader. So at the time that I, am old enough to go to the Pleasure Dome on 75th and Exchange and, go to, the older warehouse over on, Randolph, right off of Halsted, so as I'm able to do these things in high school, and of course, Mendel and the Hyde Park Racquetball Club, I go to Whitney Young, Kenwood, Whitney Young, so I'm there. Andre Hatchett is banging out, in Ferris, banging out the Hyde Park Racquetball Club. So I've got these other connections in the reel-to-reels and, the back mixing and the edits, from Frankie. So I'm being introduced to all of these things at Whitney Young. Like none of this is really so much around my community. I mean, Whitney Young was at that point just kind of like a melting pot of cultures, and you had punk culture there as well because it was so you had the kids with the black lipstick and the leather jackets. So it was a lot of different influences all happening from the so you got everything from the Clash to free songs like Pop Goes My Love and IOU and super disco songs. So I'm being introduced to all of this at the same time. It was incredible. I mean, it was an absolutely incredible, like I said, umbrella of 6 years to be in the same environment and see all the energy and flavor that came through.
Got there right at the right time, right intersection of all those different cultures to absorb that. So, since you mentioned Whitney Young, and it is Black History Month, I like to say it's American History Month because that's what it is. But Whitney Young's, for those of you who don't know, you may be not familiar with this name. This guy was a really important civil rights leader who founded, well, he didn't find, but he really energized the National Urban League and fought to end segregation. He was recognized by Nixon and a lot of leaders as to just doing a whole lot to change the landscape of America. And it was one of these schools, as Vince is describing, that was a bit of a melting pot, and a lot of really influential folks came out of there, such as Michelle Obama. I think she was in the class of 82, something like that, right. 81, 82. But I want to just dig into it a little bit more. You touched on it, but talk about the importance. Like, why did Whitney Young contribute to churning out so many people who were important to the beginning of house music in Chicago? What was happening? What was in the water there?
The number one thing was that it was a magnet school which means that you did not have to go to the school that was in your zone, in your zip code, so there's always neighborhood schools, which is kind of like the default where everyone goes to that school. So most of us were more than 20 minutes away from home on a commute. For me, it was more like 45 minutes to an hour commute to Whitney Young. My wife, who actually went to Whitney Young and graduated years after I did, so we didn't know each other at that point. Again, her story is commuting from 98th Street all the way to the slight west side of Chicago. That magnet dynamic meant that you had all of these different influences that were coming from as far north as North Park College area, as far west as people who would probably go to a school closer to Proviso if they were just a little further outside. People as far south that would have gone to Morgan Park or gone to Julian or Hirsch, Harlan, if they were out that way. But all of these different influences come in. So you've got people from Peel Hill, you've got people from Jackson Park, South Shore, Chatham, Beverly, K-Town. You got all of these different influences coming into one school, where really, here's one thing that I can say to Whitney Young's credit. It gets the, I guess you could stamp for being a bougie school, but I cannot remember any one single incident where anyone was ostracized for any.
Why do you think it gets that reputation? I hadn't heard that before.
Sure you haven't. You ever heard that though?
Well, we went to Lindblom. We went to Lindblom, so we had a little bit of bougie stamp too.
Well, I mean,
so I think if you were
there's the bougie triangle, Kenwood, Whitney Young, and Lindblom. I mean, Hyde Park is like, yeah, they think they all that, kind of thing. So it was kind of like in that triangle, Kenwood, Whitney Young, Lindblom were they all had that stamp. But I was going to say, I never remember any ostracizing. If you listen to something different, if you were a fan of, like I said, The Clash, The Cure, Depeche Mode, that kind of flavor, it wasn't like, oh, they're weird or if you want an athlete, it wasn't like, oh, this is the jock table, the cheerleading table, so people probably may have wanted to fit in, like you want a couple extra pair of Jabos, that's what was big, or Giorgio Armani tank tops, or, the things that people kind of sported, the Coach belts and, the penny loafers and all the things that kind of like, you're like, Mom, I kind of want a pair of penny loafers. But if you didn't have those things, it wasn't like people said, scram, this is for, our table only. So that was a very cool aspect of, my upbringing in music and culture as well, is that no one ever had to be anybody other than yourself to fit in.
Were you a popular kid, Vince? I think you might have been a popular kid in high school.
Here's what I've been my entire life. I've always been the outsider in the in crowd.
Okay, break that down.
Well, I'm an introvert by nature. So I never want to be in the middle of the crowd. I'm never the guy in VIP, like, yeah, send another bottle over here. Like, I'm always looking, like Alan King and I probably have a closer dynamic in our demeanor, not necessarily in our approach to what we do, but in our demeanor. Like, Alan's looking for the back door. He wants to wave at a couple people and go straight to the decks. I'm very much the same way. Like, of course, I'm sociable and I'll speak and do that sort of thing. But if I'm not working, chances are I'm not out, because it's like I get a little, I don't want to say claustrophobic or, agoraphobic. I mean, I don't get like fear of crowds, but it's just my happy space is the couch.
I'm with you. I think we're similar that way. Like, I'm always looking for the back door too.
So to kind of tie in a past comment with the future part of our conversation,
yes,
that's how I got pushed out there, because there were other people that were like, man, we need you for this. And I was like, no, I don't do that. And they were like, no, you're going to do this. Like, we need you. Now, so a lot of DJs are like, man, how can I be down? Can you put me on? Like, I've never asked to be a part of anything. People always saw something in me to say, we want to bring you out of your shell because we need you over here. So that's, part of me being the, insider. I mean, the outsider in the in crowd. I've always, been, pledged fraternity, went to a big college, Florida A&M, as well as a big high school, and have, tons and tons of people that I can say I've got hundreds of friends. People like, you can't have hundreds. I've got hundreds of people that I can call and say, can I help you? How can I be helped? do you need anything? Here's what I need. And they'll be like, got you. Or I'm like, got you. There's literally hundreds. Because when you go to Whitney Young for 6 years and FAMU for 5 years, you know, because I had a year of internships, that's 11 years of networking in very powerful circles. So I've got relationships around the country, which kind of helped me facilitate becoming a national DJ as well, because a lot of people from Whitney Young went off to do big things outside of Chicago. A lot of people from FAMU went off to do big things outside of the South. So having that powerful network, I pledged next door to the mayor. I lived next door to the mayor of Atlanta, Keisha Bottoms, when we were pledging. And I was pledging with the former mayor of Detroit, Kwame Kilpatrick. I mean, just to kind of share, like,
not to name drop, but
yeah, I mean, I'm just saying, you know, so that's what I mean relative to the, you know, the network and the social circles, but these were just my friends. So for, you know, people to go off and do the things that they've done, it's been amazing.
Well, I think people don't realize how important that kind of social network is. Yeah, Whitney Young, it was a global Chicago community, so it was a widespread Chicago community. You know, I think Lindblom really wasn't that much. There were a few people from the West Side, but it wasn't as I think as widespread of a reach as Whitney Young. FAMU, people from all over the country attend FAMU. So people think, like, how does, you know, people do kind of think about, like, how would you know all these people? But sometimes those types of decisions are so critical in your career and your social success and sometimes your personal successes, having that reach. And I feel that way with Northwestern. People came from all over the globe. And so we have people on every continent that we can contact at any minute. And certainly the Black network there, and FAMU being a Black school. I mean, I'm so proud of the people that Whitney Young, Chicago, and FAMU have brought it. And HBCU, which people don't believe is as far reaching sometimes. People sometimes will think differently about HBCUs. But now, since we have the Vice President of the United States coming from Howard University, I believe that people are rethinking sending their kids to HBCUs and how that might impact their future. So
absolutely.
It's a big deal. I mean, my company is a global company, and we actually just did a coffee talk about HBCUs. I mean, we have like 5% Black people, but thousands of people were tuning into that coffee chat because of the presence of, or the elevation of, like, how important these are. And we're recruiting people from those colleges. Let's talk about that for a second. So you're at FAMU, and I know that you started DJing before you left that, but talk about a college student DJ, because I know that's often where a lot of house music DJs fall off, because they're like, I know I did. It's like, I can't do both of these things well. Something's got to give. How were you able to sort of, you know, turn that hobby into an art, into something to make money, etc.?
I think, wow, that's probably, like, if I talk about anything I've done, that's almost like my favorite topic, because it was so innocent. And sometimes that's where the beauty happens, is when it's not pre-planned, or you're not, you know, like, I've got a goal. It's kind of like, how did I wind up here? That's how the whole thing went. So I never assumed that my neighbor, my roommate in college, would have an issue with me bringing turntables, a mixer, records, speakers. I was like, hey, I'm just bringing my equipment. And he didn't, thankfully. But I mean, that was just part of my, like, DNA, was to bring all of my music with me to school. So this is an interesting dynamic, and this is where my approach to DJing today comes from. Florida DJs in 1988 could not put 2 records together to save anybody's life. They were not technical in their approach. DJs from the South were talkers. So they had a kind of staccato. They had a rhythmic way that they would say something and then play the next record. So, of course, there were certain DJs that could DJ. So I'm not, you know, like Beatmaster Clay D, my big brother, DJ Ace Vaughn Wilson. There were DJs that could put music together, but the overwhelming majority of DJs could not blend music together. They used their words. So, you know, how y'all feeling now? And then play the next song, because there was no blending, because it would have sounded like, you know, a horse race. So the DJs from the North, who were more technical in their approach, from Philly, from New Jersey, from New York, from Detroit, from Chicago, hated the music from the South. Me, I loved all music. So the DJs from the North would have parties and there would only be hip hop, house, whatever. You know, if you were from Detroit, it was house, some techno, because techno wasn't really as big in 88 at that point as it grew to be in like 91 and that sort of thing later. You know, as a whole, you know, like the whole, it was kind of like more, you know, like this is acid, you know, kind of like sprinkles. It just didn't go into that lane. So I share that to say that the DJs from the North who brought their equipment and their music down with them, and we have to remember, this is 88 where everybody, in order to be a DJ, you've got to have crates. Now, in order to be a DJ, you've got to have a computer or, you know, a thumb drive. You know, so you have to actually have a record collection. I had a record collection that had everything from the 2 Live Crew to Heavy D to, you know, Move Your Body. So a buddy of mine who graduated from Whitney Young the year before, this is when you were able to pledge as a freshman. He said, hey, we're having a party at my dean's house. Can you DJ the party? I was like, no. He was like, dude, like, why not? I was like, I brought that down as a hobby. Again, the introvert. I wasn't trying to say, hey, maybe one day they'll discover me. I was like, this is a hobby. And he said, we'll pay you $50. So to the question of describe what it's like to be a college freshman or a college DJ, that $50 was like the most incredible $50 I'd ever heard of, because I'm 1,000 miles away from home.
Right.
This is the birth of the ATM.
Yeah.
Remember, so mom had to send a check for you to go deposit to then hope that you could get $5 out of the ATM. Like, so for you to get 50 liquid dollars in your hand at the end of a night to get 10 haircuts, because a haircut was $5, or, you know, 10 pizzas, because you could get a $5.
50 liquid dollars,
Yeah, I love
not
that.
pretend that.
not virtual dollars. Like, you know, you got a checking account now, and you can go to the ATM, you see the little numbers there where you can get up to that amount. This is in your hand.
I love it.
Dollars. So, you know, that definitely was an inspiration for me to say, you know what, maybe I could do a little bit more of this. And what actually started to happen, Lori, was that my grades got better the further I went. The curriculum got harder. The parties got bigger. The parties became more, you know, numerous, or there were more parties coming. But I was able to actually create what I would call a project flow for how I could accomplish my studies and how I could DJ more and more parties. I started DJing for student government. I started DJing for the state of Florida, because Tallahassee is the capital of Florida, and I started doing things with the state of Florida. I started doing events for Florida State, because Florida State is right across the tracks, literally from Florida A&M. So I'm starting to do all of these different things, but I'm at the School of Business and Industry, which is considered one of the top business schools in the country, actually. I mean, the caliber of people that are bank presidents and things that have come out of that program at FAMU. So interesting sidebar is that I got thrown off that first semester, and those were my worst grades ever. And the grades were so bad that I actually decided that I wanted to pledge. And my mom said, you know what? I'll come up with the pledge fee for you, which I think at that time was $500.
Wow. I did not know this.
Yes, that's why I said this is kind of like the fun part of the story for me is to share this, is that my grades weren't good enough for me to pledge. I got 1D in a class. It was calculus, pre-calculus. I got a D, and that brought my GPA too low for me to pledge. So my mom was like, well, I know you're gonna change that, and the way the FAMU works is if you get the new grade, it removes that mark from your GPA. So I took it again and got an A. So my horrible teacher. I mean, it was an 8 o'clock class for your first ever college experience, and the teacher was. So those two things together, it wasn't like I couldn't do the work. I took it again and got an A. But my point relative to sharing the whole thing is, my mom said the $500 is yours. What do you want to do with it? I said, call Loop Records and have them send me a list, because back then there was actually a pick list that you could buy music if you were not in Chicago, and they would send the music to you. And I was supposed to pledge in 89, but because I didn't have the grades to pledge, I actually used that money to expand my record collection. And that exploded me on the campus because now I had access to so many more things that I otherwise would. I mean, we know that singles back then were $3.99 unless you were buying an import, which might have been $11.99, $13.99. So I share that story to say the hundreds of records, or the 100 records that came in. If you could, jump your record collection by 100 records overnight in college, that was a big deal. So everything took off from there, and it became a huge deal. And my last day being on the campus, I threw away one of my turntables because it had just been abused, and I left my records at the frat house in 1993 and said, "Have fun. I'm done with this DJ thing. It's been a fun ride. I'm going to do corporate." And wow. I retired at 23.
Okay, now, so we got to talk about that. So I want to know why you retired, but I want to understand what you were trying to study in school and what you wanted to do with that degree.
Super quick, I got a degree in business because at 18, I had no idea of what I wanted to do in my life. And I said, if I get a degree in business, I could work for a church, I could work for a hospital, I could work for the NBA, so I don't know what I want to do. And then when I was 23 and I graduated, I still didn't know what I wanted to do, but I knew I graduated with honors. I had the credentials to go off and make a lot of corporate money because that's what people did when they left FAMU. So, the DJ thing, that was a hobby. That was cute for college, but I want to go out and make some real money. So it's been a while, and I did not DJ between 23 and 26 years of age. May have gone to Dejois to stand outside because I couldn't.
Yeah.
Gotta stand outside, man.
Right. No, it was once or twice. So I was like, wow, I'm not going in there. That's a zoo.
It was.
But from me being an introvert, I had no desire to go out. So it wasn't until 26 that I actually picked up DJing again. I took a 3-year respite because I was just focusing on corporate.
And a lot of DJs FAMU is known for its business school. I mean, FAMU, you've got kids who come out of there working at the largest companies in the country. So why wouldn't you think about pursuing that if you went to college? So it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I mean, I came out, I moved to downtown Chicago. I'm 25 years old. I'm like, hey, this is like what I want to DJ for. This is the life. Because remember, my whole thing was it was a hobby, and so I got rid of pretty much everything at that point. And it wasn't until 26 that I kind of got reintroduced to the world.
So I heard you mention Teddy Gilmore. Talk about Teddy.
It's all Teddy's fault.
Okay.
Everything is Teddy's fault. I pledged with Teddy. I met Ted 1984 Modern World History Mr. Dick's class at Whitney Young. Teddy and I went to high school together. We went to college together, and we pledged together.
Mm-hmm. What did you pledge? Because you haven't mentioned that, by the way.
Alpha, A-Phi-A, Spring 90. So myself, wow, we've got a judge from that line, a commercial pilot who was in the Navy from that line, a CEO of a nonprofit on that line. It was 15 of us, and everybody kind of went off to do some like really fun and different things. And Ted, always being the innovator, even back then in college, he came to Chicago and said, I'm going to buy a system called ClubNet. And I'm going to call it ClubNet because people are going to call in. And this is pre-internet, pre-Google. And they'll call this number. It was like, 312-866-ClubNet or something, 312-ClubNet or something like it. It was like literally a phone bank where you could press 1 for clubs and bars, 2 for restaurants, 3 for entertainment. Like he had a 6-figure system that could take phone calls in and tell people what to do for entertainment in Chicago. And he brought me in to say, I want you to be the vice president of music operations. I said, only on one condition, I'm not DJ.
Why didn't you want to DJ? Why not?
I was, at this time, I'm at DePaul getting my master's. I'm working full time. I'm like, the DJ thing is a hobby. And I'm tired of it. It was cute while it was there. And trust me, I mean, in Florida, I did something like I had a guy walk up to me at a wedding and said, FAMU, homecoming, 1988. Y'all played Howard. And I went to the Chicago club party. I was there visiting my sister. If I went to FAMU, I wouldn't have graduated. literally 30 years later, almost like 27 years later. And this guy remember, so the parties that I did in college weren't like little parties. These were like epic
parties.
But just mentally, I'd moved on and was like, hey, that was a nice period of my life. So Teddy said, well, I'm going to start to do parties after he brought me on as vice president. I'm going to start to do parties, but I want you to hire the DJs. So I would actually be the one in contact with Steve Maestro or Ferris or, you know, these big names in Chicago that he wanted to bring on. But as part of the commercial beds that they wanted made for ClubNet, they got 1200s and brought them into the office. And I started DJing. And remember, this is before you could burn your own CD.
Yeah.
And people walk into the office, you know, it's like late night, 7, 8 o'clock after work. And they're like, what tape is that? They're like, that's not a tape. That's Vince in there. So they like, he DJs like that. Like, yeah, he doesn't want to DJ anymore. They're like, wow, like, dude is really good. Yeah, he used to do all the big parties back in Florida, but he doesn't want to do it anymore. Fast forward to Union Station Party, August of 1996. Ted is like, you're up. And I'm like, no, I'm not. He's like, yes, you are. It's like that whole 1988 thing revisited 8 years later. Like, I'm reluctant. I have no desire to do this. And he's like, I'm going to do a boat cruise on the Anita D, practice there, but you're up. That party at Union Station had 1,500 people in it. And then at that point, Kenny Johnson and Terry Day, you know, from Sipping on Sunday are like, you know, Danielle Carr from First Fridays, she's there. She's like, like, who is this guy? Like, this was a rockin' party and we don't even know who he is. So Teddy was like, you're mine. Like, I brought it up. Yeah, and
thanks for bringing up those names. Thanks for bringing up Terry Day, rest in peace, and Kenny, who's still on his grind as well,
absolutely.
And Danielle, who moved
and Mike James,
Mike James, exactly. Yeah, those are great Chicago promoters who we don't talk about a lot, or if all at all, honestly. And they brought together some really great events and some parties and brought a lot of people together. So thanks for mentioning that.
No problem. So that 96 to 2000 bubble is where kind of like my, you know, I guess you could say accessibility, or people kind of making an identification like, hey, this guy. And then GCI is like, we want to use you for the Howard McGee singles jam because we don't want to use anybody from the station. We want to bring you in. And so now I'm starting to do things for GCI. Now, you know, BT, my buddy Nicola Jennings, Nikki Jennings, she's from Chicago, went to Mother McCauley, but now she's, you know, doing big things with BT. She comes home, I'm DJing at the Shark Bar. She's like, we need you on, you know, DJ Tuesdays for Planet Groove. So now, you know, I'm starting to do things with BET. And so the bubble just starts to build. And that late 90s thing was like, I hit a lot of people's radar at that point, but it was because Teddy said, you're going to DJ this party at Union Station, that I was like, no, I'm not.
Yeah, well, you clearly, he didn't have to twist your arm too much. I think you had a spark in you that he helped to sort of light that.
Yeah, no, I'm the dynamite and the wick, and he just lit the fuse.
There you go. There you go. So you were ready.
There you go. There you go.
When did you? So was that a full-time gig for you then? I mean, were you doing business and music, or what was happening in those years?
Here's what happens. I'm working for Prudential, making pretty good money with Prudential. But the club money in the 90s was totally different than what it is today. I mean, you know, what you could get for, so by the early 2000s, I'm working corporately. I've left Prudential, gone to work for Anderson Consulting, got my master's from DePaul. All of this is happening simultaneous with ClubNet. And then I leave Anderson Consulting and go work for a boutique consulting firm, and they bring me on as a project manager. I go up to director of IT. The fun part of it is now that I'm working for these brothers and they see what I'm bringing to their business, but they understand, you know, that I'm doing big things at night. They're like, hey, as long as the client is happy, do what you want to do. So what that then means is now I've got a Tuesday residency at the Buzz. I've got a Thursday residency at the Buddha Lounge. I've got a Sunday residency at Spy Bar. I've got a Friday residency. So I'm doing 4 or 5 nights a week and working daytime. And it's just like I'm burning the candle from all ends and having a ball.
Yeah, yeah. When you're
And
young,
a first marriage, and and my DJing had nothing to do with the dissolution of the marriage because I was a homebody. So if I wasn't working, I was at home. So
you had to
you
put
know,
that out there. Okay,
That's good
I
to
get
know.
you. I
That's
feel
good
you.
to know.
yeah,
But
yeah.
it's,
I mean, I'm anybody that knows me from the club knows that I just work and go home.
yeah.
Right.
I have DJ tease me like my wife or my girlfriend is like, why can't you be more like Vince? Like he just goes and works and goes home. Yeah, so I'm not in the middle of the party whooping it up. And I'm starting to DJ in Milwaukee and driving in Milwaukee for events, and Indianapolis is like, we need you, and Essence Fest is like, hey, like it's starting to kind of now venture out to national.
This was all word of mouth. These are people who hear you and just want to pull you into what they're doing.
100% of everything that I've ever done has been network.
Mm-hmm.
I've never applied. I've never got a manager or agent or a publicist, or I've ventured into to see if that would make a difference. But I was like, I think I'm kind of doing a better job doing it myself than farming it out, because the communication just isn't getting there with how I want to be even, presented. So I'll just keep doing it myself.
Yeah, you're your own best advocate, and I think that there are pros and cons to having somebody represent you, because they're not going to represent you the way that you want to be. The pro is that somebody else is doing it.
Let's be
clear.
No, I was just saying, let's be honest. Most so my tagline for my bio for more than 10 years is, I'm a businessman first. That's been my tagline, and we have to admit that most DJs are artists first.
Yeah.
So in being an artist, you're not necessarily double underlining the things that need to be done on a time basis. I'm a project manager by trade. So you take my, formal business background, put an IT business degree from DePaul on top of that, and then put in, Anderson Consulting and all of these other things. So my mind, 1,000% of the time, anything you see now, even in the virtual world, comes from me being a project manager, a business person, and then DJ is on the back end. How is my skill now being plugged into these different projects that then allows it to grow? So most DJs don't approach things from a project management or business dynamic, which would facilitate why they need, require that they have a producer, a manager, an agent, a publicist, that sort of thing, because they're not gonna.
Well, they're just not equipped to do it. I mean, you're very blessed that way to have that background. You got a lot of really cool intersections in your life, Vince, and that's enabled you to be who you are. I want to move ahead a little bit. You mentioned a few of these things, your NBA events, you were doing Shark Bar and Essence Fest. And where was Essence Fest? Because I'm always interested in there. I've never been.
Essence Fest is in New Orleans every 4th of July.
It's right. That's right.
Yeah.
I saw a girls trip. Right.
Right. Yeah. Every year. That's where. And the one year that it wasn't there, I DJ'd for Magic Johnson because of Katrina. They moved, They moved it to Houston, Texas. I think that was 2005, and I did the Magic Johnson White Party. 2006.
I think your talk. So this talk about the business element of it and being able to really integrate that has helped you to sort of create this corporate polished feel to what you do, and that is attractive to people. It's attractive to business because they know, hey, you're going to show up on time, you're going to be professional, you're going to do the right thing. And I feel like it's a message that a lot of our DJ friends and fans kind of need to hear, because there's not a lot of this, but there's enough rumbling in the community about why I can't get on. And I think so much of that is you're your own worst messenger. Like when you complain like that, it's a really unattractive quality. We're going to talk about the law of attraction a little bit. But what are your thoughts? What are your thoughts on like the rumblings and just this whole idea of how do you get on?
I'm going to share a couple things super quick because this is a powerful topic here. I've always been comfortable being the outsider. I've always been comfortable being the outsider. Here's what I mean. In 1998, I created my first website. Credit to Torrent Edmond, who already had an incredible website going on. But I was like, I should have one of those as well. And people are like, why do you need a website? Like, this is 98, remember? Fast forward to 2002, I get CDJs. It's like only real DJs use wax. Like DJs do not touch CDs. Then in 2005, I get Serato, and they're like, "Oh my God, what if the computer breaks?" Or what? I've always been a pioneer. I've always been like ahead of the curve. Like, this is what's coming next. This is what's coming next. This is what's coming next. So in that outsider thing, I've never been. People, a lot of people like to be accepted, and a lot of people like to have people say good things about them, but they don't want to go through the discomfort of the bad things or the kind of the ridicule or the chatter that may happen. Where if you chart a course for yourself, where you can see what the end is, but you go through that uncomfortable part. You just have to go through those. Like when I started, the house show, Voices of House Music.
Mm-hmm.
I knew that me not being an organic house guy would be like, who's this guy that thinks that he's going to do? But I was like, I know the energy that I'm trying to bring to the community, everyone's going to win. So I'll go through that discomfort. Mm-hmm. Now to take it back to people getting on, here's what happened in 2008. Serato has really taken off. Mm-hmm. So now anybody with a computer is a DJ. It was a little different pre-Serato. well,
they think they're DJs. What
can get a party. I mean, because now they've now brought the scale rate of what a DJ could get per hour. Absolutely. Somebody's like, why am I paying you $250 an hour? Why am I paying you $500 an hour when I can pay this person $250 for the night? When this person says they'll do $100 for the night, so it now starts to change the scale because there's so many computer-based DJs that got a hard drive and now they're a DJ. It shifts things. So here's what I said to myself. I speak the King's English. I went to a HBCU. I went to a Jesuit, master's program. I pledged a fraternity. I actually should move into the space that Biz Markie, Kid Capri, and D Nice, that they're in, and not try to battle in this club community because I'm about to be cannibalized by the computer DJs. So let me become a B-tier DJ. But here's what will happen. You'll have corporate organizations saying, I like his look. I like his conversation. I like how he can engage and make us feel like we're in a club without profanity and other things that you would have. So it's a very polished club street feel to it. I understood that in 2008 and actually took that course of action to shift my income from 15% special events, 85% residencies, because I had so many residencies, to then go 85% special events, 15% guest appearances in the club. And that was a premeditated act that then culminated in, Obama's reelection campaign. They're like, that's the guy that's going to represent us in Chicago. And then you get a picture with Obama. It kind of like goes in a whole nother direction from there. So it's been an incredible ride, but that was a premeditated thing. So you can't, as a DJ, say, I'm a great DJ. You got to find the angles. Like, everything is really about the angles and understanding that you have a strength that other people don't have. Don't play in the same field. Like I tell students because I talk to kids, I say the worst mistake that you can ever make is wanting to know it all. Mm-hmm. Everybody wants to know it all, but that's not the person that gets paid. The person that gets paid is a person that can find the one or two things that nobody knows and say, I've got that answer. Solve problems and you'll write your own ticket. Know it all, there's always going to be somebody that knows more than you do. So to me, the DJs that I want to be put on are only looking at their skill set. They're only looking at their record collection. I got this edit from, or I got no one cares about that. They care about your presentation. They care about what your package is. And if you can create a package, because we all, again, have assets, we all have pros that other people don't bring to the table. If you can now put that in a package, it makes a company, it makes a person, it makes somebody say, I need them for what it is I'm doing because they fit something specific to what I'm doing. So it's not about people putting you on, it's about you identifying your special gift and then presenting it in a way that's commercial and that can be, when I say commercial, I don't mean marketable. That's a better word.
Absolutely.
People take, I don't want to be commercial. No, you want to get paid. So you have to be marketable in order for that to happen.
Absolutely. And, you mentioned D Nice, and Lauren, jump in here whenever you want. I'm sorry. I feel like I have his attention. I just got so many questions. So
you are the host, Lauren.
That's okay.
It works out.
She's the real boss, though. Let's keep it real. So you mentioned D Nice. I appreciate that. And, the pandemic gave him an opportunity to really get this international audience with 100,000 people viewing.
D Nice is the man of the year, like what this brother has flipped
Yes.
in a year is Super Bowl DJ, Grammy DJ.
I think he was Time Person of the Year, like People Person of the Year. I mean,
he was
NAACP award. NAACP award he got nominated this year.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
For Time Man of the Year. But I mean, Ford commercials. I mean, this cat, my goodness.
Yeah, he kind of blew up. And I appreciate what he did. I think it did a lot for music. It did a lot for people's souls and spirits, in a particularly dark point in our history. And I know that you were inspired to do something similar, and that your approach is more about touching people, really sort of not just talking to A-listers, but bringing in the average person, into what you're trying to do. Tell me what that means to you, to touch, just folks who are just everyday. And I love that about your shows.
Thank you. And here's what I'll explain to everybody, because 90% of DJs probably had a view of virtual in March or April, like when things get back to normal, when things get back to normal, when things get back to normal. Let's talk about what normal was in November 2019. Most people were not in the club.
Right.
Most people were not at galas. Most people were at home. So normal is most people are at home, and you have a subset of people that go to festivals, galas, that sort of thing. So what if you can touch the majority of people? The majority of people are at home. The majority of people are not out in the club. So DJs have the opportunity to pivot to reach the majority of people, which is actually at home. Not to say that things won't get back to an in-person physical experience, but virtual isn't going away anytime soon.
No, it's not.
Because now, absolutely, because now a market that has never been, catered to before is now like, well, why should I leave home when I can dance in my socks and my bed is like 10 minutes away? 10 steps away, and, that sort of thing. So I give that impression because we a lot of times think about virtual being this temporary kind of thing or this holdover, where really prior to COVID, most people were already at home. So now I'm DJing virtual events where I'm bringing people from across the world, literally across the world, not just across the country, across the world, all into one space at their own convenience, at their own leisure. What that means to me is that, and this is something I recognized very early on in my virtual undertaking, was that people were like, we just want to hear the music. And when I say people, not necessarily directly to me, but I kind of know what people say and how things go, especially in the house world. Like, we want the music. But what that represents to me, not to disparage anybody else, is if it's just about the music, I can load a mix up to Mixcloud.
Right. you don't need to do all that.
Right. And like you can just listen on Mixcloud and you never have to see me if it's just about the music, but the level of engagement, the level of creating this now decentralized dynamic and creating a centralized feel around it needs engagement. It needs points of contact. It needs, when you hear Limblom, when you hear Whitney Young, when you hear Northwestern, when you hear Wildcat, it's like now your senses, everybody has a reticular activation system. We're going to hear our name. We're going to, even if it's Lori, huh? Oh, that Lori. So your reticular activation system is always triggering something that says, give me the familiar. Is he a Kappa? Because that's a red. No, he's an alpha. Is he a Sigma? Because no, he's an alpha. But reticular activation system kicks in and says, this is familiar to me.
Right.
What if you can do something that engages everybody, where they say, pick me, say me, do me. That now creates a community that you otherwise wouldn't be able to have in a, if somebody was in Texas, Brazil and Chicago. Now you can bring all of these people together by the engagement with the music. So, that for me was my special feel for it. And, you definitely encapsulated the difference between myself and D Nice, and more, I'm kind of like the everyman communicator, whereas D Nice is on that A-list level, like Janet Jackson, Naomi Campbell, Lenny Kravitz, Michelle Obama. I want the person that went to South Shore to be like, South Shore High School is here, like South Shore, you got to speak up. Now I know that you're here, show me some green on the screen. And then they're like, I love it. Green. Percy Julian, hey, what's going on? Where the Jaguars? I need to know you. So when you're doing that, it creates a sense of pride. Now it's everybody's party.
Mm-hmm.
That's what to me feels good is I can present an event where I've got Sigmas, I've got Qs, I've got Kappas, literally that are reaching out to me for me to do their parties as an alpha because they know I don't represent alpha. I represent them in their community when I'm, presenting their event. So that feels good to me where people have already disassociated all of my connections and say
Mm-hmm.
he works on our behalf and we like, connecting with him for that reason.
Yeah, yes, you are definitely. I can see why people would be drawn to your energy. It really is. It feels like a connection. It feels like you're part of a lot of people's family.
We all feel like we know you. We all feel like
Yeah.
we knew who you were, although someone like me didn't exactly know who you were. But you did bring all the connections together.
Yeah.
So whether that was a Kappa hyper local in South Shore to a Kappa in California, or the Alphas from Detroit who now live in California who work in Hollywood, they're all on the stream. They're all enjoying themselves. And again, you just made, my best friend Lori Hayshaw says you basically saved her life during COVID because she was inside, unhappy. Just you brought everyone to life. You brought everyone to life. The stream, just looking at your stream, it's almost like being on the outside of Dijois, right? You just want to be on the stream. You just want to see what's going on. You want to see who's coming out. You want to see who's going in. So that's how I relate what you did.
Well, it creates community, right?
Let me add this part of it as well. So, Lori, thank you so much for the incredible compliment. I don't take it lightly, and I've heard it before, and I don't say that to be dismissive of it, but just to be inclusive of how many people have been touched in a way like I was trying to figure out what it is. So I call myself a pleasant distraction. We've got health, we've got money, we've got, politics. We've got this world out here now that so many, I just want you to be pleasantly distracted for the 30 minutes, the 90 minutes, the 2 hours, whatever that time allotment is by being silly. Let's have some fun together. So you've got Lori, but you got her husband, Steve, and you've got her daughter, Sanaa, who's about to turn 13. Happy early birthday to the pipe.
Yes, in 1 week, tomorrow, 1 week countdown.
There it is. So I share that to say that the other thing that I said is I want to create a community where mothers are partying with their kids, where fathers come in the room and say, what's that you're doing? And now they want to party with the family as well because, 96% of what I play is, the radio versions, it might be, nothing that they haven't heard on HBO or something like that. But I don't play provocative versions of songs. I make it so that the entire family can get together. And I'm seeing my New Year's Eve party, which had it was probably one of, if not the biggest African-American based New Year's events on Twitch, had entire families for the first time probably ever partying.
Nice.
For New Year's. So if we think about it, it's like get a babysitter because we're going to the party, or my kids are old enough to watch themselves, we're going to the party, or we're all going to sit together and watch Ryan Seacrest, with the ball drop kind of thing. But they don't kick it when they sit at home with Ryan Seacrest, or if you leave and the kids are at home with the babysitter or old enough to watch themselves, you just come home later like, oh, we had a good time, peace out. But actual teenagers and preteens and husbands and wives brought in the new year together as a family. And I was like, this is powerful, but that's kind of like a thread that I had created early on where I wanted families to party together like Sanaa, Steve, and Lori. So that's been a winning formula as well.
Steve, Vince, you mentioned health. I appreciate you bringing that up. A few years ago, and I just noticed it from your social media, you were really public about sort of getting in shape. You posted pictures of your body, sort of these before and after, about your own journey towards better health. Why did you do that?
How did I miss were there naked shots in there that I missed?
Nah.
You gotta do your research.
I gotta go back.
That's funny. Here's what I can say. It was a friend of mine. Her name is Alicia. She's from Chicago. She went to Evanston Township, now lives in South Florida, right outside of Miami. She started her own branch of a network marketing company, or her own distributorship. And she gave me a call on like a random Thursday and was like, hey, I'm doing a company and I like for you. I was like, not interested. Not at all. I was like, thank you. I've done the thing before. We've all heard about things. No, thank you. I'm not interested in anything. And she was like, well, it's around health. I was like, oh, that's different. And I saw the video of it, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to come to the thing tonight. She might have invited 25, 30 people to the thing. Myself and my girlfriend at the time were the only two people that showed up. And I saw her, and this was my first time seeing her in maybe like 6 or 8 months. And the last time I saw her was at LA Fitness, and she did not look the way that she saw that she looked. But I was like, is this the thing? Like, how much are you working out? She's like, none. I was like, you're drinking a shake and you look like that? Oh, sign me up. We're about to get rich. Because everybody wants health in a bottle. If we can give it to them, you don't have to sell it to them. All you have to do is show up and look different. And so, again, that's taking my business dynamic, my understanding for timing, all the different things, and being a DJ and having a public, presence. If people could see me physically reverse age at the age of 45 and look like I did, when I was 29, they'd be like, wait a minute, time out. Like, what's going on here? I want some. And so for me now, this year it'll be 51 for me to, still not necessarily look like I'm 51 and still be vibrant and all of those things. I'm constantly a, Lori said, my own best advocate or marketer in that regard. So that was where that came from. But, there's just always the desire to connect with people. And this is my social, I guess you could say, approach is I always like to be personable, but never personal. And what I mean by that is when I say never personal, it's like, oh, I'm having a crappy day. Like, leave that off. But for people to have a connection with me and to feel like they have access to me, I always want to be personable and share a happy position or disposition with people. And, for those who I connect with, I'm very blessed to make it an impact and, a good impression with them with the, personable approach.
That's great. All right, so it is Valentine's month, so I want to bring up your wife. You recently married. Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Appreciate it.
And I've seen that you and your wife promote the law of attraction. So let's hear your love story, and then let's hear about your thoughts on the law of attraction. Is your wife there? Maybe you want to come and give me share the stage with you one moment.
A smooch real quick. Say Kalila, Lori.
Yes.
Kalila,
I can't see her.
Happy Valentine's Day. She's got to get in.
A little closer.
There you go. Hey, you look fantastic. Where's she going? Come on back in. We got to hear the love story. You may have to take off the background because we can't see her because of the background.
God, just lean in a little bit. Tell us your love story here. There you go. Perfect.
So that wait a minute.
There you go.
Is that
Her background?
That's all right. They know you're here, so you can just
okay?
pop in,
I'll
pop out.
pop in.
No, we want to see your whole face.
Let's see. Maybe if I
Knows what to do.
There we go.
There you go.
Stay right there.
There it is. So,
Okay.
so super short story. We actually met over the product that I was marketing that Lori spoke about the before and after pictures, and so we have a mutual friend, and he invited her to his kitchen, and we met in his kitchen in 2012, which was 8 years ago, and we made her shake. She hated it, but she saw that I had a BMW, and I didn't necessarily look 42. At the time. So she was like, well, I can do a better job at this than these guys can. And we became fast friends and really a community. And fast forward to 2016, in like December, she was like, you know what? I've been doing some things around the law of attraction, and you introduced us to the law of attraction, when we were building the team. I'd like to be able to share with you what it is that I found. And I was like, wow, I'm always down for a positivity, progress-based conversation. And it didn't take but more than like 4 weeks of us just like communicating after that for me to be like, wow, like she was a friend, and there was, never anything relative to, a connection beyond friend. I mean, she's beautiful, but like, hey, but that was powerful for me to say, you know what? Anytime I've ever dated somebody was because I saw them from a corner, out the, far side of the room, and spark shot out your butt and you were like, wow, she's hot. And you know, 3 months later, you're like, she's hot, but you know, there's this part or there's that part.
Yeah.
You know, Kalila, I'd actually known at that point for about 4 years, and just her character, her nature, her value system, which is very close to mine, was super different in personality, but we value the same things: peace and comfort, and you know, cooperation and that sort of thing. I was like, man, this is you know, an instant connection, and literally within 2 weeks of us dating, I was like, oh, I'm marrying this woman.
Did you feel that way too, Kalila?
Yes. Absolutely.
She's gonna be like, no, not really.
Oh, please, yeah.
First of all, is that whole story correct? Number one, you know, we got to go. What's your side of the story?
It is. I mean, it's funny because like we were such good friends. Like I journaled a lot, and I always journaled that, you know, like I was so thankful for his friendship because he was my friend that was not judgmental, and I could just share whatever, and he'd just be like, whatever. So when we started dating, I'm like, man, like you kind of know everything.
So sweet.
So absolutely, it's just you just never know how things are going to turn out because yeah, like if I had a list of everybody that I thought I could have married, it wouldn't have been, because he was just my friend. So I never even looked at him like that. He was more so like my good friend, my mentor, my person. I could say, I'm having this crazy thought. Listen, I know this is crazy, but you're not going to judge me.
Yeah, he was right there the whole time. See?
Yeah, it's crazy.
That's beautiful. That's a
That's
wonderful
beautiful.
Valentine's.
We actually got engaged a few months later on my birthday. So I proposed in Mexico. So I'll never forget our engagement date because it was my birthday. And then COVID came around because we had been, you know, of course, planning. And when you're, you know, kind of well-known person, and she went to a cult college of U of I went to a cult college of FAMU, and then you got the cult high school of Whitney Young. Like there's a lot of people who expect to be at your wedding.
And I have a big,
of course.
Yeah.
I have a very, very big family.
Right.
Oh my goodness. So
between,
what you guys do?
Well, when COVID hit, I was like, remember the angles I talked about? I was like, hey, this is a great time to have a wedding with 24 participants. And,
Silver lining of COVID, right?
Yeah, but it was beautiful. It was an absolutely amazing wedding, family only, and you know, but the love that we received from our friends and community was overwhelming as well. So that was August 25th of 2020.
Well, congratulations, guys. It's nice to see love, and especially in this day and this week. You know, we invite more of it. Law of attraction says you think about it, you believe it, you attract that energy to you. It sounds like you did that for each other. So congratulations.
Thank you. And the interesting thing is that for months, when I was developing everything that I do virtually, I would call her the EP, which is the executive producer. Like she knows nothing technically, but I'd be like, what do you think about this? And she's like, change that word. What do you think about this? Change that color. So I don't know if you've ever heard the More Cowbell SNL.
Love that one, yeah.
So there's an SNL called More Cowbell. Well, the producer is only like, more cowbell, more. So I call her like the Diddy of production.
Right, I was like, I'm like Diddy. I just kind of come in and I say this, and it's just like, okay, great.
It works.
But from her doing that the number of times that she has, I was like, you should have your own show. So now she actually has her own show, and I'm her EP, and her show.
Well, tell us about your show.
We got a lot of shows to talk about, clearly, right?
Yeah. So I started a blog, High Powered Love, which is about the law of attraction, attracting everything that you want in life. Obviously, I talk about love, but energy is energy, whether it's money, health, love, whatever. So it's all about using what's on the inside to manifest everything that you want, to manifest your dreams. So I started out with a website, blogging, and sharing, positive law of attraction tips, tricks on social media. And then I had my first show on Twitch last Tuesday, which is the High Power Love Show, where I share tips, tricks, inspiration, all about manifesting your dreams. So I started last week, and today, Valentine's Day, is actually my second show at 4 p.m. today. So
We'll be watching, and we'll
We will
definitely
watch.
going to be on Wednesday, and we're going to share the links. We'll make sure everybody is tuning in.
That's
And
fantastic.
I'm really, I
Thank
love.
you.
Look, I'm a huge fan. I watched when that video, The Secret, came out. I bought the book. I love Michael, Beckwith, and I go to Unity, and so I'm all about. That's my whole life. So
Yeah.
I can't wait to join you in that.
Well,
I think we need
awesome.
reminders. We need reminders sometimes that you can manifest your own destiny, correct? You can
Yeah,
think about it, you have to work. You have to work
Yeah.
at it. But I think we need reminders, and this is a perfect time for your show,
Yeah, and
especially
that's
as it
what
gets
it's all
colder.
about.
Yeah, so we both like strongly value peace. So,
Yes.
the fun part about us is that we disagree on a lot, but we don't really argue.
We do.
So it's like, I don't, okay. We just kind of like go about our
Like,
ways.
I don't see it that way, but okay.
Yeah, so it doesn't really have to bubble up, and a lot of that is our natural demeanors. We're just kind of both naturally calm people. But I was introduced to
He's calmer.
I was introduced to positive thinking at a young age from my mom, and then it went into my first book at 25, and then it went into more esoteric spaces around the age of 30. So I was kind of like a student of law of attraction and/or just understanding the impact that we have in creating our own dynamics, and probably for the last 20 years. So that's why when she gave me that call, I was like, oh, I'm all for having this conversation. So it's just for what
He's like, oh, I've been looking at this for like 10 years. I'm like, oh. Good for me.
yeah. So for what Lawrence said relative to the reminders, like literally, like I've read hundreds of books, listened to hundreds of books, listened to tens of thousands of hours in this space. So it's just kind of like my everyday modality. Like this is just the frame that I move in.
Well, it gets integrated into your DNA, and then you don't know how to do anything else.
Absolutely.
That's just how you live your life, Well, it's fantastic. I mean, we could talk all day. Leela, thank you.
Thank you, Leela. Happy Valentine's Day.
I like this.
Best of luck with everything.
And then we can talk about your show. So you have a show on Sirius XM.
That's right.
Talk about that.
So I was introduced to a lot of people in the house community through the Voices of House Music, and XM and Mary Datcher specifically, shout out to her and Global Mix. She was like, I love the show. And I was like, the show was not really framed for a 28-minute window, which is what it's in.
Yeah.
It's kind of like an exhaustive and, however long it takes to get it out. But I've got another show that I do called, One-on-One with DJ Vince Adams, and I can integrate that into more of a fixed time frame. And so that just became a great connection. So I've had guests on from Will Packer, who's like the #1 Black film producer, and now he's doing a lot of TV as well. And he's in Atlanta, but he does huge things in Hollywood. So he did everything from Girls Trip to Think Like a Man, Straight Outta Compton, the NWA story. So he's had like 9 #1 movies, but I pledged him at FAMU, so I can call Will and be like, hey, Will, hop on the show. He's like, I'm there. I've had COOs on. I've had Mr. Talkbox, who we know from 24 Karat Magic. He's done a lot of gospel, but he actually won a Grammy with Bruno Mars for 24 Karat. So just again through all of these different relationships and the network, I now bring different. I've had Kalila on the show as well to talk about her show as well. So that's what it is. It's on 142 HBCU. And it airs 3 times a week. So it's on Sundays and Tuesdays on the replay. And then on Fridays, the new episode debuts at 4 p.m. Central, 5 p.m. Eastern every Friday. So that's on 142 HBCU.
That's awesome. Well, definitely, I'm going to be tuning in. I got Sirius, I have it in my car, and I just never in the car. So I got to get the app and put it in my office.
Well, my next guest is going to be Terry Hunter. So
great, that's our boy.
Yeah, so that'll be on Friday.
That's great.
That's awesome.
So
we'll be listening.
We're going to wrap up. I can't thank you enough for your time, Vince. I know you have so much going on, and we think you're such a treasure for our city and for our nation. I know that each of these projects just kind of lead to bigger and better things. And you just get deeper and deeper and touch more and more people. I was watching your 10,000 steps show the other day, and I was getting it in. And my wife was like, I'm going to watch that next time. I'm like, yeah, we're going to do it. We're going to do it together. We're going to like sign on and like hula hoop, do some stuff. We got some hula hoops in. My thing is I'm skating around the house now. That's been my exercise. It really feels the difference. So
well, I'm going to do a small promo of this sort for someone else. DJ Siren. Yes. DJ Syrehn. She's out of California. She came on the show and she brought her wife on the show.
Yes.
On Wednesday, and they were like, oh my God, like this is so different. This is so incredible. And, I invite everyone to look at her on Instagram. She's an amazing, absolutely amazing DJ. I'm going to, actually after this, we've got a little green room time, everybody. I'm going to show them a quick clip of Siren after this. But I say that to say, that's what I love about the community that I'm building. It's so inclusive. It's so like, hey, heterosexual, all communities are coming together and saying, you know what, we feel good here. We feel accepted here. Kids, I mean, it's, for Sanaa to say, hey, Vince, and then my buddy DJ Focus, he said, my daughter, who's 6 years old, is like, Dad, a celebrity. She's like that. She's talking about you. So, everything from, I've got a few shows. One, my Monday through Friday, I do the late lunch mix, which is on Twitch, and it's designed to be a virtual lunch table. So in high school, we all sat at the same lunch table and sat with the same friends and talked stuff for the 45 minutes that we were at lunch. And then we kind of like were late to the next period class because we didn't want to. That's what the late lunch mix is. It's really a kind of a variety show with music in the background and quizzes and different things. And then I've got my newest show, which is Two Bros in a Video, which is on Friday nights now, which is a variety show with videos as the background, but me and my guest, and my I guess you could say my partner in the show, DJ Chaotic. We talk about music videos that are DJed by DJ Chance. The debut show was this Friday, and I was literally in real tears, like wow. I was crying real tears. And then you had the 10,000 Steps house music party and also guest DJ spots and a lot of incredible things. And I've got a lot of special events coming up for private clients. So I am available for, people who represent sororities, fraternities, civic organizations, companies. I produce full events for them in the virtual space, and I'm helping people raise a lot of money as well in virtual fundraisers. So tons of things going on for sure.
Well, that's great. So if people want Vince Adams to themselves, how can they do that?
I'm DJ Vince Adams on everything, on Facebook, Vince Adams at Gmail, DJ Vince Adams on Pinterest, if you want to see what I pin on Pinterest. Like literally Twitch,
He's
Twitter.
On Pinterest. Now that's when you stepping up. That's when you're thinking outside the box.
That's
on
right.
Pinterest, okay?
LinkedIn, you name it. He is DJ Vince Adams everywhere. And I don't refer to myself in the third person, but it's just fun when I think about the fact that everything I do has that same dynamic. So,
well, you're your own business, your own company, your own university, your own entity, and larger than life. Vince Adams, thank you so much for being with us today. This is it's fantastic. And I hope you'll come back. We always scratch the surface. I always feel like there's more.
There's so much more just relative to the music, the community. So I'm here for you whenever you would like for me to be here. But continued success. I'm a fan of the show. And
thank you.
I just, love to see us all progress in the culture.
Awesome. Thanks, Vince. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you for sure.